So speaking of that, how great of a hire has Coach Carbs been for the Washington Capitals? He's into year 2. Year 1, he kind of had to find his way. Didn't have a lot of scoring. Didn't have a lot of offense. Right now, by the way, they're averaging over 4 goals per game played. They're the only team in the league with a 4 in that category. Pretty remarkable turnaround. And Coach Carbs, he's been really good since he's been here in Washington. Did you know that he was going to be this good before he was hired here?
Well, I don't think anybody knows how good anybody's going to be until they do the job. I mean, I've known Spencer for a long time. I mean, Spencer was an assistant coach in Carolina when I was the coach of the Caps. So, I mean, we'd bring them up and for training camp and go out with them and talk to them. And you knew he was sharp. You knew he was going to be well equipped because he does his research. He does his, the due diligence. He puts the work in. So you knew he was going to be a good coach, and he is. When he went to Hershey, he was a good coach. When he went to Providence, he was a good coach. He was a good assistant coach in Toronto. And there was nothing in any conversation that I ever had with him, because when he lived in Hershey, we golfed together a lot, and that would ever make me think that he wasn't going to be a good coach. So, I mean, I applaud him. I applaud the way he's brought this team together, and hopefully it can continue.
Talking to Bruce Boudreau, former Capitals coach from 2007 through 2012, how surprised are you by the start that Ovi had to the season before the injury? Maybe nothing surprises you because you coached him for 5-6 seasons. Were you surprised by the start to the season with all the goals?
Well, I mean, anybody that says they're not completely surprised is probably lying. I mean, I had a good feeling that he was going to do a lot better than the start of last year. I think he was more committed this year. And let's not forget, once things started going and he was in good shape by the middle of the season, he went on a tear the last half of last year. So I figured that I was hoping that he would do really good, and he did. He's come out, and he's the old Alex, and he's been flying. His shot has been accurate and really good. And the biggest thing, he's been derailed for about 4 weeks maybe, but I think he'll be right back there and continue and taking off from where he left off.
Coach, can Caps fans, I mean, we've played 25 games, so there's a long way to go, but based on what they're doing offensively and how they've played, there's only a few teams that have more points than the Caps right now. I think 3 or 4 teams. Can Caps fans look at this team as a legitimate Stanley Cup contender right now based on how they're playing?
Well, I mean, I think they're playing as good as any team in the league. I mean, I look at them as 4 lines deep. I think the acquisitions they've really helped this year really made them better. Do I think they can continue scoring 4 goals a game? I don't know. That's pretty tough to do. Mm-hmm. I mean, and they'll come down a lot. But if they come down in the goal scoring, I think what keeps them going is they still play good defensively. They still know how to lock up the games. They still know when they've got a lead in the third period, they're very difficult to catch. So to me, and I do a lot of TV and radio and stuff, I always say that they're a contender and don't sleep on them, that this is a team that will come up and bite you because they are deeper. They've got depth. They don't depend on one line to do all the work. And when you've got a team that goals can come from anywhere, then all of a sudden you've got a pretty good team. And I think their defense has really improved this year. They're big, they're strong, and they got 2 good goalies. So, I mean, there's nothing that says that this shouldn't happen. I mean, a lot of people I talk to down there says it's a special group, which is great. And hopefully they can continue. There's going to be maybe a rough spot or 2 during the course of the season, but I've got them pegged in as a top 3 team in the Metro, not a wild card team, just a top 3 team. And when that happens, who knows what can end up.
Bruce, you touched on the 2 goalies, and when I heard the plan was going to be, well, we're going to platoon these guys, basically start them every other night, I raised an eyebrow I don't know, that seems kind of dicey, but it's worked between Lindgren and Thompson. You know, Thompson got picked up in the trade from the Vegas Golden Knights, so kind of an unorthodox approach. Did you ever do that in your career while you're coaching in the NHL, like basically flip-flop guys every other night, or is that a pretty novel approach here, what Carbery's doing?
Well, I guess it's okay to do if you've got two good goalies.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they're both 1 and 1A, and did I do it? Yeah, when we had Varlamov and Neuwirth, we tried to do that, but I mean, one of them always got hurt after about 5 games, so somebody would have to play 6 or 7 in a row before the other guy came back. I mean, it was the same thing in Anaheim. I had John Gibson and Freddie Anderson, but they couldn't stay healthy. So we were doing the flip-flop thing back then, but I mean, eventually somebody ends up playing 55 and somebody plays 37. It would be, I think it's easier on the goalies, quite frankly, if you can do that. There's not as much wear and tear, but you've got to have faith in both of them. I think the Caps have faith in both these goalies.
Coach, recently you shared a story about Ovi and curfew. Would you mind sharing that with us?
Oh, it's a long ago story, but I mean, it was just something funny that years later I find it funny. I didn't find it funny at the time, but I mean, that when the one year we had a young team that really liked to go out a lot, and so we had to keep our tabs on them every chance we had. And so George said, I think I want you to start calling curfew. Well, I mean, I was in my 50s at that point in time, and I'd never called curfew. I felt they were men, and they know what their job is, and they'll take care of themselves. But he said, call curfew. So I said, okay. So, I mean, the one night, and report back, is anybody not in and everything else. So the one night, the last person I wanted out was Alex. I mean, because then when you find a guy is out for curfew, then you have to do something about it. And in D.C., if you do something with Alex, punish him in any way, then all of a sudden, I mean, the papers it's a bigger story than it needs to be anyway. So, I mean, I was trying to get a hold of him, and curfew was 11 o'clock, and couldn't get a hold of him. And then I phoned Ian Anderson, who was our team services guy at the time, and I said, Ian, you got to find him. You got to find him. He's got to get a hold of me by 11 o'clock. And so at about 2 minutes to 11, phone rings, and it's on the other end. It's Alex, and he says, Coach, what? And I hear all this electric music going on, the people dancing and yelling in the background. And I just asked him one question. I said, are you in for curfew? And he said, yeah, Coach, I'm in. I said, I hung up the phone and said, good, I don't have to deal with it anymore.
It's good stuff.
It's a great
He could have told you anything.
That's Coach Bruce Boudreau. Thanks so much for joining us.
No problem. Anytime, guys.